Hello, this is Vince here from Shoutcast bringing you the second game of Paul versus somebody. As you can see, both players are spawning as Protoss, so this time we have a Protoss versus Protoss matchup. The last matchup, Paul being the Protoss player and winning decisively against somebody as Zerg. That's not a huge surprise since sometimes random players struggle most with Zerg as they are the most different between the other two races. I believe Protoss and Terran play a lot more closely than Protoss and Zerg or Terran and Zerg does. And Paul given a Yardy Har Har because he's a pirate, and that also gives him a clear and distinct advantage over somebody. Anyways, pylons going up in the front for both players since they do not know that they are both Protoss, but these probes will be headbutting very shortly as they both path to the other's base. And here it comes, clank, ouch. Anyways, I would like to say thank you to all of my new YouTube subscribers. I've gotten quite a few over the past few days. Maybe that's because I bought a new computer and you guys can sense it and see the better quality of videos that I am now bringing you with the better shadows and better physics and things like that. And if you can't tell, that's fine. I can. Alright. Probe just chilling out on the base, seeing just a single pylon. Always sucks to scout or Protoss early because you're not going to be able to see any variation in their build until after that first gate goes up and you see either a second gate or a cyber core go up. But these probes had to come here this early just due to the fact that they were random players, and got to make sure you know what race you're playing against so you can adjust your build accordingly. Probes duking it out on both sides of the map, but Paul running away for a brief second, then coming straight back in and attacking the pylon again. Almost excessive, but that's fine. And this probe still chasing that probe. Speaking of excessive, almost no reason to be doing that. Just make sure he doesn't stay hidden in your base for too long. In fact, now that you've seen the gateway go up, you're pretty sure there's not going to be a proxy going on, so just let him roam free. Let this guy get back to mining. And looks like we almost have an early mistake coming from Paul. I do not see a second pylon being built for him, and since I am actually on the production tab for once instead of forgetting to throw that up at the beginning, we can see that there is absolutely nothing under production for Paul right now. And he is indeed supply locked, so... Oh, I'm sorry, he just delayed that probe a little bit, but there's still no pylon coming up for him, and that's huge since this probe is going to be out now and this probe will not be able to start building. He in fact is now warping in a cyber core and a second gateway, but not a second pylon. This is a mental mistake by Paul. I'm sure he normally does build that second pylon. I just don't know. I don't think he's realized that he hasn't built it yet. Somebody, however, doing a fine job building his pylons and now getting his second gateway up and chrono boosting that warp gate technology. And just kind of emphasize my point, there is now a 2 harvester gap between somebody and Paul, and why that may not seem like a big idea, it is significant because in the early game that small bit of difference, and you can see that gap does increase for 3 harvesters for at least a little bit while. And I will switch back to production tab so we can see what units are coming out. Finally that first zealot coming out for Paul, that second gate now being completed, and he does have 2 pylons up so he does not supply lock himself that quickly again. As you can see, the third gate for somebody is now going up, so he is keeping steady with the warp gate pressure, and looks like he will probably be going a warp gate early attack as he is chrono boosting that warp gate again and again. Paul chrono boosting his probes out to try to get his income back up, and just letting his warp gate build naturally. Throwing up a robo, so he is going the 2 gate 1 robo. I do like that build against a Protoss a lot, as long as the other Protoss is not concentrating too much on zealots. And as you can see, the stalker is coming up and around over here to check for any proxy pylons, and there are none, so somebody must be a little happy about that. This is a very popular place to place proxy pylons so you can warp your units down over here underneath the shade of this tree where they can relax until they attack the enemy's base viciously. Stalker's coming out for Paul, giving himself a more balanced army. Another pylon going down, that's a good idea, as that robo facility is coming up, and an immortal will probably be coming out of that eventually. I would imagine an observer. Oh, the immortal does come out before the observer. I like to get the observer out first, as a chrono boosted observer, especially just so I can see what my opponent is planning on doing. You see somebody is throwing up his own robo facility, so he went 3-gate robo, not exactly standard, and is now throwing down a forge. Always a good thing to do. Those weapon upgrades can turn into be huge advantages in Protoss versus Protoss battles, especially since it seems like a lot of Protoss players end up neglecting their upgrades, and that can be dangerous. 3 sentries out for somebody. I do like this. Sentries are very, very good in Protoss versus Protoss, especially for their Guardian Shield, as that helps reduce a lot of incoming damage from both the Stalkers and Immortals, but it looks like Paul is going for a timing push now that his first Immortal is out to do as much damage as he can do. And it might be effective against this small army of somebody. The 3 Zealots and 3 Sentries might make it a little more difficult than normal, but we will see. And that Guardian Shield going down immediately for Paul, that's a very excellent idea. No Guardian Shield for somebody, that is a mistake. And as you can see, even though Paul's force looked smaller because of that Guardian Shield, they weren't taking as much damage from the Stalkers and Sentries, so it was fine. And there is a weak Stalker in there that needs to get shot, but does not look like it will. That probe does look like it was about to expand, and while this battle has been going on, Paul has thrown up his own expansion. This is a good idea as you push out. However, somebody does have an observer there, so he does see it. A couple pot shots on it, but unfortunately that observer's not close enough to do enough damage, and now pushing towards the front, and he's targeting this weak pylon up here because he did have to start the wall off, killing another Stalker, and that Stalker that was low health now has full shield, so it wouldn't die too quickly now. And since and somebody has sent a probe up this way to build a proxy pylon, this could be huge since he does have this observer here, and he does see that there is not a huge army for Paul sitting right here, and that is because Paul looks like he was just supply locked, as he now is just warping in units, and he is right at the money, so not too bad for Paul. Getting in more units, just missing these Zealots warping in, and target firing this Immortal, a very good idea by Paul because that weakens the army very greatly. So, Paul trying to focus fire the other Immortal down, but unfortunately there's good micro from somebody pulling it away, letting some of its shields recharge. He needs to throw up Guardian Shields though. Looks like he did not have enough energy to do so, but if he did, it's always a huge key part in Protoss versus Protoss battles, and I don't think Paul will be able to recover from this. And I really think, as strange as this will sound, it was supply locking himself at the very beginning of the game, because it becomes very hard to match your opponent's army when you're behind that 1-200 minerals over that time period. Even if we switch to income tab, I know 4 harvesters just died, but that expansion is up. Paul must have just overtaken somebody recently, so we'll maintain what I said. And an Immortal coming out for Paul, but there are way too many Stalkers here that it will die very quickly. This one pylon is powering all these buildings. That's a weak structure from the Protoss player, and now he has absolutely no hope because 3 of his unit producing structures are not currently producing. It looks like Paul was going to go for Colossi, but never had a chance to come out. And now Paul's pulling his probes, not wanting to give up, still wants to give as much of a fight as he can. Throwing a fairly worthless force field is somebody. Probably would have been better to save up for that Guardian Shield. He was only a few energy away from it, but now the Immortal and the Zealots come out, and they are taking out the expansion. And since there are almost no unit producing structures for Paul, he is completely incapable of bringing any more units to the battle, and he is supply locked from the previous destruction of the pylons. And it looks like somebody will actually leave that one up, but I don't think it'll matter that much. He can just push in here, and he can just stay and kill these probes. The probes aren't going to be doing enough damage to the strong units of the Protoss. All these probes are just sacrificing their lives away for ire, and doing a little bit of kiting just to make sure, but he needs to get those Zealots in front of his army so the Zealots slice and dice those probes very quickly. Not much chance Paul has at this point. Most of his probes are now dead. There's a fairly large army from somebody still in his base, and it does not look like he will be able to pull it out, and he is not able to. Paul GG's, and we are now tied up 1-1. I really think that forgetting to build that second early pylon really hurt Paul, and then just not a large enough force to hold off the incoming army from somebody, mainly because this nice placement of this warp pylon. And I asked Map what Paul next, so you will get a sneak preview if I get a response back from Paul before the game is over. we will find Metalopolis, or as Paul says, Metalopolopolis, or however you spell it. Anyways, so the final of the best of 3 matches for the semifinals will be played on Metalopolis. Hope you guys stay tuned for that game. It should be posted within the next day or 2. Thanks for watching this one.